see you too.
I am working it. It's the sun is keeping me going. It's nice that the days are getting longer, isn't it?
Oh my god, we've had like 3 days of glorious sunshine in Ireland, and everybody's literally like the happiest they've been in a year and a half. It's great.
Yeah, I would say a lot of people in my village have had seen a lot of sunburns and all of that. So
exciting. So Popper 37.
Yeah, this is a big one, right? There's a lot in this little package.
It's funny because it's a 3-pager, you know my thoughts on that. Like the whole second page is just a repeat of the first one. Like, why did Popper do it? Out of interest. Is it stamina?
I think it is. I mean, I personally thought, it doesn't, it's one of these things, like if you had to play 2 bars of this stuff with all the mordents, it doesn't feel hard. Like you do that quite a bit in lots of different repertoire, but I do find, it comes down to your philosophy about how much weight you use in the fingers, but it's knackering for me already by the middle of the first page. If I'm not really concentrated on optimal amount of energy happening here, it's so easy to bang out those notes to get the articulation to speak, and therefore I think he was like, all right, you think you can power through 1 page, but can you do 2 pages? And then another page.
You might be right on that. And that'll be interesting to see.
I don't know, but maybe you didn't find that such a challenge. What do you think?
So, I mean, I definitely think it's really like, it reminds me of the trill idea that in order for these to sound good, you have to have an equal amount of weight on both fingers. So often you'll have people doing instead of that clarity and brilliance in the sound is actually coming from making sure you have enough on the upper note as well. So I definitely, I'm not a big fan of people rotating the wrist like that. Mm-hmm. You know the way some people do a trill that's kind of this kind of a trill. You know my thoughts on that. Like, I just think it's lazy. But some people love it. So I think if you're rotating too much, that really interferes. If you're playing fast in any way, it's just so you really have to use finger action as opposed to. I don't think you should be using the rotation that way. Just up and down, and the balance of the hand is a big thing.
I think that for me, it's more. I totally agree, by the way, but I think for me, when I think finger action, I have to be careful that I'm really thinking about the way actually the finger weight comes down is a release. Like, it's partially in your head what feels like a release and what feels like work.
Tension and release. Yeah, exactly. The constant thing of cello everywhere.
Yes, in every microcosm. But having said that, I do think there's moments where I kind of thought these mordents, as he calls them, and in the Popper little manual that comes with the Bärenreiter, I was like, oh, there's different interpretations about what's a mordent and la-da-da. There are definitely moments where I think you can make more of a color of them. It's sort of or something, and more about color maybe than like the actual way each note speaks.
Obviously, in a piece like this is particularly for mordents, but you have to also think of the mordents as in the character of the music that you're playing. So I suppose we should probably talk about what are mordents. Anyone who's watching this who actually doesn't know what they are. So mordents are when you see the little squiggle above the note, that is the note itself, and the note above if you're playing just an ordinary mordent. And in the Baroque era you would have put it on the beat, but in the classical and romantic era it's always before the beat, right? Did I just do the same thing?
No, I heard a difference. It's always the thing though, isn't it? You're like, ooh. Yeah,
and I found that very interesting because even at the opening, should you actually take time from the previous note to actually take away? It's funny because do you remember Navarra? I keep talking about these 5 golden rules. They were hanging up in my teacher's studio, Ashton Drury Byrne, for years, and it was never shorten a note before a trill, a string crossing, mordent. I don't think that was on the list, but pretty much any kind of ornament of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I think often if I'm playing something really fast, I will join the mordant notes to the end of the previous one, so that it fits in easier. So otherwise there's a hull, so you can do this to hear the big hole and your timing is all wrong. So I find it really fascinating that you have to coordinate by changing your bow before the beat with the mordants as well. So if you're doing it really slowly, so you could even practice it in a triplet to the previous note if you were being like,
yes.
Now that's very juvenile, but when you speed it up and it's really, really fast, then that actually does make sense.
You know, what you're talking about reminds me so much of something that Gary Hoffman told me in a masterclass once, and it was in Dvorak Concerto. So you know the
yeah.
It's been a while since I played it. And the way to practice that is just as you say. Know what I'm saying?
I do know exactly.
That's exactly the same, isn't it? It's practicing in that shift before.
I know that's your audition piece. I know you know that backwards, which is really funny as well. Were you know before that?
I haven't played it in a year.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that funny? How things go out.
Doing different rep. It's nice though. It'll be like refreshing to play Dvorak again when I get.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna do one of these on Dvorak, and it's gonna be epic.
It's gonna be epic. But you know, so speaking of Navarra / Aisling Drieber's rules, there's another place in the first line where I was thinking of that. I was like, oh, this is one of the rules, and it's this.
Yeah.
I noticed every time I tried to shorten that, well now I've hit it, but like that I usually was much less successful with that shift than elongating the note before.
Exactly, and also making sure that there is a connection. I think that's often when people will miss that, right? If you can't hear it, end of the old bow. There we go, so you should practice it. And then just later and later. Funnily enough, the international doesn't do that fingering at all, and I think I would naturally.
What does international do? I didn't know.
I think they do. So 3, 1. I think that one. Yeah. So where'd you get to the 1? I just had a little laugh because I would never do. Seems madness. Yeah, who knows?
Again, it is mad, but I've enjoyed doing that because it's something I would never do. And
Me too.
It opens up the toolbox in a way.
It does, and also very, very important, I think, to stay on the level. Because it's weirdly in your head, it's such a high note, you kind of expect it to be on the A string. I did at least. Yeah. So I found I had to make sure that my bow arm was really, really staying just where it needed to be. Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is things Starker talked about a lot, but it's probably interesting and why I'm used to different fingerings. But like that whole thing from being in a quite square position, if you're in your 4th finger in the lower, 4 positions or so, and then you have to move to a thumb. This is quite a large rotation that needs to happen in order to find that thumb position. And so, it's kind of that question of, are you going to invest the concentration and energy onto like one complicated shift to then sort of be up there? Or are you going to do some slightly more ergonomic shifts, Or is your hand such that like both of those feel equally comfortable and you don't need to do so much rotation? I have to do a lot because of my short pinky. But it's quite a big, Anyway.
Yeah, and preparing the hand early is the big thing for me, is that it's too late if you're like, it's just too late. Move, so you already have your hand going. Go. You know what I mean? So actually, if your brain is engaged, then it's much, much easier.
Yes.
Which is cool. I like it. What did you think about so I had a few interesting moments when I was learning this. because this is not actually a hard etude, but I think working out what you're going to do with the mordants is actually interesting. So the general rule I would have always thought was, so you're basically playing the upper note in the key that you're playing.
Yes.
Right? So just to explain what that means, rather than you have to have a tone of a mordant. And
because
so
we're in E major,
because we're in E major. But then there were some really unusual ones that I just didn't feel were right. Did you stick with the plan all the time, or did you change? Like,
I tried to.
Example.
Give me an example of one.
So it's always when there's some kind of chromatic harmony beforehand that I want to then use. So let me see.
Bar 13 was a really strange one, wasn't it? Bar 13.
Oh yeah, so I definitely did. So C natural, because we came from the C natural there. So
yeah,
it didn't make any sense for me to go. So instead I just changed the harmony.
This might be a performance practice question, because I always assumed, and you probably know more about this than me, to be honest, but like that it was then, like if you were reading an accidental in the bar, it lasts through the bar. Also for the decoration.
I think so too.
A good example is that end of that bar, when we go for the A natural, I was trying that actually with the A sharp, which was probably wrong.
So funny enough, that's exactly a classic case. So I did. Because it came from the A sharp, I did this. And they didn't specify. Now, that's only because it literally came. So that one should actually be C natural, right? But then technically this should be, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, see, you're actually doing it the right way. Whereas I just love the edginess of. Same here. Like, at least I was consistent, right?
Yeah, at least you were consistent. I wasn't, because I did it the second time in the lower octave, but not the first time. Oh, well, man.
You got it right the first time. I mean, you've just got to go whatever you're doing. So
you can make excuses for any artistic decisions with these things, can't you?
But you see, that's the problem. Is I wasn't actually. I actually just love going with my ear for these things. So there, I actually did what is your tone from the G natural to the A natural in bar 14. So tone here, G natural there, but then here. So I am going with the so do you see what I mean as far as my lack of consistency goes?
Yeah, but
I still feel like it's edgier with the A sharp, so I liked it and I went with it.
I was gonna ask, we might cut this out of the video, but like 65. Did you find that bar just sounded like the weirdest transition? I was kind of like, Popper, did you just give up there? What was that about? Or am I playing
I mean,
like, what?
Is there something different in the international? I did have that exact same thing and I didn't check the international. Is that what it is? Should I check?
Yeah, let's check.
Give me 1 second. Popper basically had already written 2.5 pages and he was like, I'm done with this, and that's what he should have learned, was to keep his Popper Etudes just 2 pages, and then he wouldn't have got bored and his transitions would have been more effective. I'm going to cello hell. Cello hell.
No, it's...
Do we ever hear short and sweet? No?
No, he didn't. He some of these are short and sweet, but not this one.
I know.
But I think it kind of has this, even though it's really long and repetitive. I don't know, because I haven't listened to it through yet, but I sort of have this feeling that this study's going to have quite a flair to listen to. It's one of those ones that's sort of...
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. I actually do love, to be fair to Popper and all my slagging, that moment where it goes. Just at the very end, where finally it's like, yay! I mean,
E major!
I mean, it was beautiful. So, fair play to Popper for that bit. And that makes up for his weird transition in the last page.
Yeah.
There, we've said it. It's out in the open. We've put that to bed. It's good.
Okay, 2 other things I was thinking of. One, obviously, we have to talk about these crazy big shifts. The timing of those, right? Because this is quite a speedy study. I mean, it depends what tempo you're playing, but I really think that you have to take some time there to play those octaves. What do you think, Ailbhe?
Yeah. I mean, I did practice it with the metronome without that. Yeah. The big thing for me was then getting those words beforehand. Once you get up there and being organized enough, you know. So I don't mind a bit of time there. If you're a singer, you would never go yeah da da da. You go yeah da 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 da. You would never do it the other way. It wouldn't make any sense. So why would we do it in the cello like that?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It calls for expression, isn't it? It's very Lalo concerto with those those octave D things. It's the same sort of
Dumpy.
like
Dumpy start. Yeah. Or E.T. as it's known. Do you know that bit at the end?
No, I don't. I'm sure I will if you played it.
I think, what key is it in? So, I mean, I'm not playing the right key, but the very end has the theme from E.T. in it, I'm pretty sure.
So other things with this, I thought, okay, like articulation, you know, again, I don't know what the international edition says, but the band writer, there's like a few little spots where he's put staccato markings, dots
it's really random.
3 semiquavers, and you're like, what? Like, again, Popper, like, why don't you just make this shorter and tell us? And no dynamics. There's like 1 fortissimo at the end, mezzo forte at the like very last recap. But it's like, just decided we're gonna do that.
Yeah, you're dead right. So I actually in international there are way more dynamics.
Oh,
I mean, I would have naturally done that crescendo. You know, everyone would do something like that there.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so it's still a bit dubious. There is a crescendo into MF there, what we have here, but it was already MF, right? So I don't think they mean we had to come down somewhere. You know, pick and choose that
crescendo, and
right?
then maybe it's a subito mezzo forte less. It's like a very awkward transition.
Maybe that's the way you watch it.
You know what? Maybe Popper's smarter than we're giving him credit for. It's like a total
come on. No.
Fake out moment.
No. What? Okay, let's do it for the playthrough and we'll see how we go. We'll convince ourselves. And then, funny enough, into my favourite moment, the third last line, when it gets to our E major very solidified, there is a last minute crescendo of just 1 beat to forte.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I like that. I do wonder why they left them out in, obviously that was just an edition thing in international.
I think it may, dare I say, be an editorial error because...
Ben's fighting words. Yeah, it looks like something's amiss somewhere, but it could also just be that Popper never wrote any in, and you know.
It could be, but there is nothing about that in the little addendum thing. So you know,
that's very interesting.
Maybe
we should bring out our own after this. Add another one to the mix and just throw it there for people.
I know.
I love it. Right.
So yeah. I was just going to really quickly say articulation in this. Because, you know, I think it's one of those ones where when there's not a lot marked, there's a lot of room for interpretation and change. And I'm definitely like playing it differently. Like that opening, sometimes I'm doing it quite détaché, more connected. And then sometimes, you know, you have it 3 times, so you can mess around with it. And with the harmonies, I think the harmony really will change how you choose to articulate things, right?
Yeah. I definitely found the 4 semiquavers with the staccatos randomly at the end of the first line. I found that very odd, and I didn't understand. It didn't compute to me why I would suddenly do something like that.
Yeah, maybe he didn't want people to really like crescendo into those or something, like maybe he didn't want that sort of a thing, and that's why he put them, but I don't know.
It's curious. I mean, I can't wait for our playthrough to see all of the idiosyncrasies of Popper that are going to come out in our performances. It's going to be excellent.
As also my idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, and mine, all into the mix. So, I actually found, weirdly enough, I don't know about you, but the hardest section for me to kind of pull off was actually the last page. So it really there where you suddenly have to change where you put your mordants. I found that really interesting, that just the change of timing suddenly totally messed with your head.
Good point. I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah, the not on the stronger beats. It's
Yeah, it was fascinating for me that I needed a while, but also then the next 2 lines, as far as really making sure which ones are semitones and which ones are tones in your mordants, that's a real brain melt.
Also, just the stretch, sort of like, you know, you have this thumb thing and you have to do the. It's very spinning song, that piece, Popper piece. I've never played it, but there's a da 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 da.
Exactly, and it's okay to plant. And I was actually thinking about where here that your thumb does need to come up then.
Yeah.
So you're back in balance land, and where else then do you have that same thing again?
The next line.
Back up to your usual position. I think it's very important. To figure that out. The next section, this kind of like a bit melty, right? I didn't want the top note to stick out too much, so I actually wanted to phrase from then phrase. So you're always going ya ba 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 ya ba ba ba, and then it stops it sounding like, you know, that kind of malarkey. I think we need to address the fact that we really need to be, that's a dangerous area where you're like, yay, it's so lovely, and then actually you listen back and it's terribly out of tune. So it's very important to be really nicely balanced through all of that, and then really thinking about our it's kind of odd, isn't it, that it's like the same thing, but suddenly it's not enough of a harmonic change for me for it to be beautiful. Popper, throwing one out, look.
I know.
And then here I found you really have to be quite careful about where you put your second finger. And really actually still think about a shift in that grace note. Because if I didn't think about a shift, if I just tried to bend it back, it never worked.
Yeah. Those are good points. Very good
points. And again, the trill. The bow really close to the bridge. You can either have your thumb behind, but you need your second finger to be high enough. Now, some people would do that kind of trill up there, right?
What, like the vibrato trill thing? I guess
but
so.
I don't think it's small enough to warrant that, so you can still do a really profound. Okay.
All
Feel
right.
free to cut out.
super.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you.
Oh my god. Yeah, super well done though. Oh my god. Like it's such a. You know what? It does sound really cool to listen to. At least when you play it.
Yeah, it does.
And I thought your Subito MF was very effective at the end.
no, you have me convinced, and I take it back, Popper, for all of the abuse I threw at you. Now I'm enjoying that subito NF, so I did it with heart and it worked, so kudos to Katie for pulling that out.
Hey, well done us for getting through it.
Go us! That one seems like a bit of a worker, you have to, I find just even learning it takes way more effort than a lot of the other ones. Just because I'm like, oh, which note do I play on top? Why didn't he just write it out?
It is, it's the chromaticism, and I think it does, I think I'm quite a visual learner, actually. Which is why I needed to like turn the page in the middle because like it's like the placement of stuff. It's funny, but yeah, getting my head around some of those things does take quite a bit longer. Just because we're not used to reading Mordants all the time, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Is why.
So I'll go off and have a think about my Mordant choices. Yes. And I'll make better ones the next time. But I still stand behind my edgy reasoning, so I'm gonna, don't copy me, but I still like it.
Yeah, I do too. Yay! Well done!
Go us!